In March of 2016, a video production team from Helena Civic Television went to the self-governing island of Taiwan and then to Guangxi, the southernmost province on mainland China, to explore the sister-state relationship Montana has with both. Kirsten is HCTV's executive director. She was busy and popular too. People everywhere, and especially young people, are attracted to anyone with a video camera. Jeannie is our ace videographer. She found joy in strange surroundings and took a shine, as we all did, to our Taiwan guide, Peter Sun. Chris was our team photographer. She took pictures, lots and lots of pictures. Chris is particularly enamored with animals, but she's really good with people too. Stephen, that's me, was tasked with leading the way. I was treated very kindly right from the start, as we all were. It was my job to do most of the talking wherever we went, explaining the aim and objectives of our purposeful travel.
We are here on a paradiplomatic mission to craft a documentary television program about the sister-state relationship between Guangxi and Montana. We are hoping to spread the word in Montana and throughout the United States that Guangxi and China are very special places, worthy of visits, worthy of commerce with the United States. And we are practicing what we call citizen diplomacy. That is, unofficially, we are citizens of Montana working in the nonprofit sector to boost education and cultural exchange between China and the U.S., and particularly between Guangxi and Montana. So we are just delighted to be visitors in your beautiful city.
So this is how we begin a simple account of our brief immersion in a complex diplomatic environment. Our approach is thematic as well as somewhat chronological. There will be a bit of back and forth between Taiwan and Guangxi, two distinctly different places with divergent trajectories, both full of engaging people and amazing landscapes. Welcome to our Asian adventure. From Montana, the most direct way to reach the Far East is to travel west. It took a little over 21 hours to get from Bozeman to Taipei. We were relieved to clear customs and get some new Taiwan dollars. Our mission was and still is to cultivate and help sustain friendly relationships in the midst of a regional rivalry that is increasing in intensity. We regarded ourselves as unofficial citizen paradiplomats, scooting along under the radar with cameras and microphones and lots of questions. Citizen diplomacy is up close and quickly personal. Our first contact on the ground was with Peter Sun from Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He greeted us at the airport and delighted us with a mix of humor, humility, and efficiency from that moment forward. Our first destination was Taipei, Taiwan's capital city. The Sun World Dynasty Hotel served as our base of operations in the city. The place is big, modern, and well appointed. Hotel manager Jürgen Klemm provided a crash course on Taiwan and what makes it tick.
Because I've been living in Taiwan for 28 years and have seen a lot of change here and probably know a lot of things, or seen a lot of things which other people haven't seen. If you live in Montana, you've got a lot of space and not too many people. Here it's just the opposite. We don't have a lot of space, but we have a lot of people. So this is a very crowded place compared to Montana, I suppose. So I think seeing something different is certainly very interesting. On the other side, of course, the culture is totally different, because this is a very business-driven place, especially Taipei City, because everything in Taiwan really happens in Taipei City traditionally. If you look at Taiwan today, the development today, I think it's about 70% to 80% of the country, in fact, is really the middle class. There's an absolute incredible amount of people starting businesses or having started businesses who do very well, because they're extremely flexible. They're really willing to go the extra mile. They go everywhere. They do anything for you to make the business work. And if it's for $5 more, they come at 3 o'clock in the morning as well. It's not a problem. They'll do it. It's a place where business relationships, personal relationships, in fact, do count a lot. It's very important for them. Sending them an email, saying, I want to have some goods, maybe you don't get a response. If you show up yourself, they'll have you out for dinner and you go there and you'll be a friend. The next time you come, you'll have the same treatment, and for the next 30 years it's still going to be the same. It's very, very much valued to have the personal relationship between friends, much more than between the buyer and the seller, if you want. I think Chinese mentality in business, they're very daring. And so when we're still thinking about, shall I invested money, I don't know if it's so safe, they'll go guts and do it. And because you have guts and you do it, they'll do it earlier than the others, which means puts you in quite a much of an advantage, in fact. So if you look 20 years ago, for example, Taiwan was the #1 investor of all the countries in the world in China and in Vietnam too. Nobody else would go there, but the Taiwanese were there already. Well, it's like taking the maquette in the bushes and go through there and fight your way through the jungle and make money, you know. So I think the mentality is like that, very entrepreneurial, very pioneer style. And all those big corporations you see in Taiwan today really started like that, and they became huge conglomerates today. But it's all built on private entrepreneurship.
Taipei is large and bustling, with metropolitan surroundings containing over 7 million residents. By Montana standards, this place is huge. We found it modern, sophisticated, densely packed, charming, well-ordered, and busy, busy, busy. At the Taiwan Province seat of government in Nantou County, we were treated like VIPs. We were cordially checked into the Lotus Garden Guest House. This is a place designed to calm one's nerves, to enjoy serenity, to contemplate one's good fortune. It worked for us. Paradiplomacy has its perks. Our guide Peter smoothed the way. His compatriots made us feel more than welcome. The governor himself was supremely gracious. So is his Secretary General and other staff members, including Mei Li and Lindsay, who helped us navigate in so many ways. The Taiwan provincial government compound is quite large. We enjoyed learning about the history and architecture of some library and archive buildings in a gentle rain. That evening, we were ushered into the enchanting environs of the Pine and Wave restaurant, a place that combined almost magical ambiance with culinary excellence. Jeannie went walkabout while we enjoyed our meal with the Provincial Secretary General and several of his colleagues. This place was out of this world. We basked in the convivial warmth that surrounds citizen diplomacy. Our tour of the provincial government's facilities was whirlwind, but we got the picture. Taiwan's people are proud of their cultural and ethnic heritage, their tremendous economic achievements, their place in the world. We ended up in the Hall of the Sister States, the symbolic epicenter of Taiwan's foreign policy toward the U.S., forging partnerships with each of the American states. International law does not permit Taiwan to enter into a treaty with the U.S. or any other sovereign country. The government on the mainland, and the United States too, maintain a one China principle. That is, there is only one China, and its government is in Beijing. The People's Republic refuses to grant diplomatic recognition to any country that recognizes Taiwan as a sovereign state. Over the years, Taiwan has established relationships with 42 states in the U.S. We found the Montana flag amidst this collection, but it wasn't easy. The colors had faded. That's a positive sign of longevity. Our sister state relationship dates back to 1985, but we took note that our state flag is past due for replacement. In the simple yet sumptuous reception hall, I had the pleasure of discussing with Governor Lin Juncture some of the finer points of federalism. Just as we Montanans and other Westerners have a predilection for states' rights, provincial and local governments in Taiwan are pushing back against pressures to centralize public policy decision-making. As is almost always the case when interviewing high officials, the questions were prepared and agreed to in advance. As citizen diplomats, we were happy to play by the rules. But formalities quickly dissolve in such friendly surroundings. What do you think is the most important aspect or feature of this relationship?
I do hope we will have more mutual cooperation between Montana State and Taiwan. And first, we have to send our people to go to the Montana for studying or for sightseeing. Then the Montana people will come to Taiwan more often than to understand each other more. That is more important to have more business between Montana and Taiwan, because economic is a very important issue to face and to help us buy more products from Montana or take products from Taiwan. We want to keep in peace during in the East Asia. So that's good it will be good to the United States and the mainland China and Taiwan.
It was bittersweet to say goodbye to this extraordinary gentleman and everyone around him. Sun Moon Lake is a major tourist destination in the central part of the island. The name of the lake is inspired by its shape. The east side of the lake is round, like the sun, while the west side is long and narrow, like a crescent moon. We enjoyed rounding the eastern shore on bicycles in the rain. There's lots to eat and shop for in the urban lakeshore villages, and many boats for hire. Most of the visitors here are from mainland China. Our Taiwan hosts informed us that while tourism is important, there is also a bit of resentment among the locals, mainly because citizens of the People's Republic of China think they own the place. Just before boarding a tour boat, we were hustled into a small restaurant. It was 1:30 p.m., time for an air raid drill. There are over 1,000 missiles on the mainland pointed at targets in Taiwan. Hence, there are annual exercises to ensure that people can quickly vacate vulnerable streets. The larger pagoda on the hillside is a shrine dedicated to a famous itinerant monk, Xuanzang. His story is linked to a famous literary work, Journey to the West. The temples on the hillside contain a shard of the monk's skull, as well as other relics. Some people believe that a portion of Buddha's ashes are ensconced in the pagodas. We got off the choppy lake and went airborne, into clouds and mist. This is not a ski area, although there are some in Taiwan. Have you noticed that it rains a lot here? At the end of the Sun Moon Lake aerial ropeway is the Formosan Aboriginal Culture Village, a sort of open-air museum devoted to celebrating Taiwan's ethnic diversity. On the day of our visit, it was a wet wonderland. We took shelter in one of the dazzling interior showcase areas. The extraordinary craftsmanship of many types on display here speaks for itself. We also happened on a rather upbeat performance by youngish locals in traditional dress. We were told they were singing a Christian pop number. Something we have in common with Taiwan is a strong and growing interest in the history and contemporary well-being of native peoples. The major tribal groups on the island are part of an Austronesian culture that spanned vast distances across the Pacific Basin. Our guide at the Shengye Museum of Formosan Aborigines was an enthusiastic volunteer who managed to convey many aspects of the indigenous people's histories in a regional setting.
Welcome to Shunyi Museum of Formosa Aborigines. Shunyi is a small corp. It was a private, but this museum is studied maybe 30 years ago. And Mr. Lin collected over 1,000 pieces. You know, Taiwan's people today is 23 million, but most of the Taiwan's people came from mainland China recently, just maybe 200 or 300. But our Aboriginal peoples stay here over 3,000, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years. Wow. And they are the big family. You know, nowadays our government recognizes 16 subgroups here, 16 subgroups. Mm-hmm. But originally there's many, maybe over 20 or 30 different kind of subgroups. But nowadays is here, in mountain area, most of area in mountain and in the East Coast. And then the biggest sub-tribe is Abis. Abis. The population of the Abis is over 18,000. Wow. Yeah, it's lots. It's lots. And the smallest one is Sao. Just
Sun Moon Lake.
Sun Moon Lake, that's right. 300, just only 300. Wow. And then there's two big tribes, very brave, and used to let an outsider headache. You know the outsider? Yeah. Outsider means from 300 years from Dutch people, Ming Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, and the Japanese colony, and the KMT Kuomintang. Right. Yeah, well, headache about this one, Taiyang, and this one, Punan. Because they live in the central mountain area, in Snow Mountain and in Jet Mountain. You know the Jet Mountain? Yeah. Highest mountain in Taiwan. Today, our Aboriginal people get into the modern society. Mm-hmm. So their wearing and their education, even they have their own television. They have own their television. So you cannot distinguish that maybe just a little bit different from our people. Yeah. I mean, literally came from mainland China. They maybe just same, almost the same. Yeah. Just sometimes a little bit. They have their traditional ceremony. Yeah. But most of the time, they are same like us in nowadays.
In Guangxi, on the Chinese mainland, we discovered a similar dedication to preserving and promoting indigenous peoples. There are a dozen distinct ethnic minorities in Guangxi, more than in any other province of China. While we were not permitted to shoot video in the Guangxi Ethnographic Museum in Nanning, we received a warm welcome, a great tour, and an invitation to come back again. In Taiwan's western port of Taichung, we visited Top Foods, the largest flour mill on the island. We received a spirited welcome from Mr. Xin Lao Lin, the CEO, whom we'd met years earlier in Montana. 75% of the wheat milled at Top comes from Montana. 60 varieties of wheat are cleaned, sifted, mixed, tested, sorted, and bagged before being shipped to commercial bakeries, noodle factories, and dumpling shops. The milling operation combines Taiwanese ingenuity with Swiss machinery. It seemed to us a model of clean and efficient production. A subsequent meeting with executives from the Taiwan Flour Mills Association, hosted by U.S. Wheat Associates, afforded us a high-rise view of parts of Taipei. It also opened our minds to the significance of Montana hard spring wheat and its rich protein content to the growing flour mill industry in Taiwan. Much to our surprise, the people of this island country now consume more wheat than rice. Breads, noodles, and dumplings have supplanted rice as the main staple for Taiwanese households. We had to ask whether there is much consumer demand for pulse products from Montana, such as peas and lentils. Not yet. Back at our Taipei base camp, the Sun World Dynasty Hotel, Jürgen Klemm waxed eloquent on Taiwan's culture and cuisine.
Food in Taiwan is absolutely amazing. I think it's one of the biggest selling points they have. Usually we say it's the most friendly people you can meet, and the food is absolutely stunning. Taipei today has one of the most varied cuisines in the Chinese culture area you can find anywhere, because everything is there. I don't compare it to Singapore, because Singapore, you have Thai, Indonesian, Malay influences, which are very, very great, very good, but it's not all Chinese. Here is really all Chinese. But you get all these different tastes and all this huge amount of different kinds of foods available every day. Taipei City alone has 70,000 restaurants. Now that's a lot. 70,000 restaurants means that can be the guy with a restaurant, 100 seats inside, but it also can be the guy with a trolley out on the street, coming out after work. This is important. After working in the daytime, they go on the night market, they push their trolley and start selling noodles, dumplings, rice, grilled stuff, anything. There's a lot of Japanese influences as well. So the food variety is absolutely amazing. You can eat yourself to heaven here. The thing is with the texture of the food in Taiwan. Chinese cuisine in general, it's either stir-fried quick or it's steamed. It means it's always very hot. You never wait for your food. Like French cuisine, doing this and macerating this, and forget about it. They would never have the patience to wait for all that food. You go there, they put it in there, comes out of the wok on your dish, and it's so good. It's still crispy, it's fresh, it's got all the vitamins. It's really healthy food, in fact, if you don't put too much oil in it. And then you have the steamed food. There's no oil at all, but steamed is very hot. It means you eat in Taiwan, you don't get sick from it. It's working in hotel business for so many years, people don't get sick because the food is always cooked in a way that you don't need to worry too much about the germs, even if the hygienic conditions in some of the kitchens was not very good. The food coming on the table was cooked so hot that you don't have a problem with it. So it's rare to have people get sick, well, maybe from drinking too much. Well, that's another problem maybe. I think Taipei City has 36 night markets. That's streets which are open in the daytime, and then at 6 o'clock somebody puts down the barrier, and then those trolleys show up and the restaurants open up, and then suddenly you have restaurants until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. It's all over town. And that's something which is very specific to Taiwan, in fact. You don't have it in China.
The Chinese people are a lot like us Americans. They are almost always eating. And nothing connotes citizen diplomacy more than a shared meal. We enjoyed many wonderful experiences sampling exotic and always fresh foods. The Lazy Susan is ubiquitous in Chinese dining rooms and eating establishments, the better for getting a taste of everything on offer, including such delicacies as sandworms, vegetables of immense variety, and the daily catch, like this grouper. Din Tai Fung is Taiwan's most celebrated dumpling restaurant. Located in the stylish Taipei 101 building, this is the flagship in a fleet of restaurants located elsewhere on the island. It's a rare privilege to see the food you're about to eat getting prepared before your very eyes. Our special hostess, bearing a badge of honor, Best Employee of the Week, was named Cherry.
Hello everyone, and my name is Cherry. I work in a Din Tai Fung 101 branch store here, and now we can see so many people coming here because so many food is very popular here internationally. And this latest see is our dumpling. It's a famous one. It's pork dumpling. Why we pork dumpling is famous? You can see this one because we have everything have same weight, same height, and very hygienic and same quality. And we have a controlled temperature. maybe just 5 minutes, we serve this xiaolongbao. One dumpling, we one day can sell 10,000 or 12,000. One day, it's just one kind dumpling. So they were working very hard, and then one chef maybe working 10 hours here. And they have been training 3 years at least. And we have a test every month. They can practice this skill.
Din Tai Fung has establishments elsewhere in Asia, a testament to the Michelin star quality of the food and service. People love these dumplings. Clara Thamke is a Helena High student on a Rotary-sponsored exchange program. She spent the school year in Taipei. We were lucky to hook up with the Thamkes at the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Complex, which includes a mausoleum, an opera house, other large buildings, and a stunning arched entryway. We thought it'd be nice to get a short father and daughter sequence into the mix, and our subjects were most obliging.
They're super nice here. I'm treated incredibly well. They help me out with anything that I can need, and they're just accommodating for everything that I do. It's very nice. But the culture is so different from the US, it did take a long time to get used to. Like, they don't have very many trash cans because they want to be clean, but in a different way. I don't know how to explain that. They have a lot more technology. Well, they're always trying to strive to improve their technology. And I mean, it is a big city, so everything is different than Montana in that perspective, but like all these buildings are tall, and they're building, every day they build more and more, and they're a lot more efficient with the way they do things. Like, if you've noticed, even with the traffic, it's incredibly crazy. I could never drive in it, but it works for them, and they barely ever have car accidents or anything. I have noticed since I've been living here for 7 months, like sometimes they'll start road projects, and like in Montana it'll take years to finish or something. It takes them like a week to finish building just a certain part or fixing up things. It's really efficient. I think a lot of Montanans have a very skewed perspective of Taiwan. They tend to think that it's closer to a third world country than a first world, but I feel like it's more first world than the US is in many ways. And so I'd like to get rid of that stigma. I don't think very many people do know about the relationship between Montana and Taiwan. A lot of people don't even know about Taiwan. So I think to improve it, we just need to educate a little more about this country. Taiwan is 1/10 of the size of Montana, and it has 23 times the amount of the people in Montana. And I like to tell them that we have more cows than people, and they're always baffled by that.
Before the trip started, Clara's mom, Joanna, hooked us up with her daughter's Taiwanese counterpart, Oscar, who was spending a school year in Helena. We caught up with Oscar and his host mom and brother at a cross-country track meet in Helena.
My name is Lai Boyu. This is my Chinese name. My English name is Oscar. This name is because in Taiwan, we have the English is our second language, and we must take the English class. So on the English class, the teacher will help you to pick out the English name, or your parents will help you to pick out the English name. So that's why I'm called Oscar. It's so different from my my name in Chinese. In my city, it's so hard to find an animal in the city. If you want to see an animal, you must go to the zoo. And it is so good, like here are so many open space. In my city, we just have a road, and it's hard to find a park. And well, I really like here. Here I have so many trees, and in my city, we just have so many buildings. I come here is because I go through the Rotary Club. And what I choose is, I choose a country, but we can't choose a city. The Rotary will see what they want you to go in which state. Yeah. So they help me to choose the Montana, and I really enjoy here.
Chiang Kai-shek is a controversial figure in modern Chinese history. He led the nationalist forces against Mao Zedong and the Communists in China's 20th century civil war. The nationalists were defeated and in 1949 relocated their forces to the island redoubt of Taiwan, still proclaiming themselves to be the legitimate government for the whole country. Chiang looks beneficent enough as a larger-than-life figure, but in fact he was a dictator. For over 40 years, Taiwanese endured a harsh authoritarian regime. Martial law was declared after a violent uprising in 1947 and wasn't lifted by Chiang's successor son until 1987. The National Palace Museum is one of the most visited and highly rated in the world.
My name is John. I'm a docent here at the National Palace Museum. We have a lot of visitors from all over the world come here, and the reason is that right here at the National Palace Museum, there are some of the most wonderful treasures from the Chinese collection of the old dynasties from China. And these treasures here are part of this collection. And the National Palace Museum here is one of the 5 most well-known museums in the world. So we welcome everyone, especially from Montana, to come and visit us here. During the World War II, when Japanese invaded part of China, all the treasures originally in the Forbidden City were packed in the wooden crates and put on back of trucks and shipped to the Western Mountains in China to protect from bombing. After the World War II, all the treasures returned to the east coast of China. But then the Chinese Civil War between the nationalists and the communists started. And when the nationalist government came to Taiwan, 1/5 of the collection were brought over to Taiwan. That's how, because Taipei here is a long distance from Beijing, where all these treasures used to be. So now they're here in Taiwan. All the visitors to Taiwan or here to Taipei can come and enjoy these priceless pieces.
After a brief orientation to the layout of the vast building and its collections, our guide took us to look at several of the most popular and most venerable objects on display. It was difficult to find a view through the mostly young visitors enthralled by a stone cleverly rendered to resemble, of all things, a thick slab of bacon. That thing is actually a bell. It dates to 771 BC. The protruding knobs don't have a sonic function, but once seen, the object is unforgettable.
The piece in front of us is called the Cauldron of the Duke of Mao. It's the most famous bronze piece in the museum because if we look inside, you can find 500 characters cast inside the bronze. That's the most of any bronze in the world. Through thousands of years, the character we use today is still very similar to thousands of years ago. Amazing. Yeah, so it's evidence that Chinese character is one of the longest ones used in the world out of so many different languages and so many different types of characters. Yeah.
China goes way, way back. It may be the oldest country in the world. Since 1972, the United States has not had formal diplomatic relations with the Republic of China on Taiwan. However, the State Department funds a non-profit organization that manages commercial and consular affairs. The American Institute in Taiwan looks like an embassy and acts like one. We were fortunate to meet up with Mei Wang, who represented Montana in trade matters for decades before the state shifted to an office in Hong Kong. Her colleague Jim Curtis is a commercial officer.
The Commercial Service is specifically designed to help U.S. businesses do business internationally. So we have a network of offices across the United States, and then in almost every major consulate, embassy or consulate across the world where the U.S. has significant business ties with that country, we have offices. And what our 2 sections do, the U.S. side of our operation counsels and meets with companies and encourages them to explore selling their goods and services into overseas markets. When a company has been identified as having an interest or having opportunities in Taiwan, then our office, along with that company, will send information to us, and we'll then take that company and help them identify partners, do promotional activities, whatever it is that they need to help enter the market. And these services are specifically targeted to, not specifically targeted to, but are really geared towards the smaller and medium-sized companies who don't have the resources or don't have the necessarily industrial knowledge to put forth to expanding into international markets. 3 years ago, the US and Taiwan agreed to eliminate the visa program from Taiwan. So Taiwanese travelers are able to enter the US on what's called it's a visa waiver program. And it's been extremely successful. In the past 3 years, I believe there's been a 42% increase in travelers from Taiwan into the US. So that's sort of the service industries that we promote. Further, people often don't think of education as an export, but when you have a foreign student who is paying tuition at a US university, those are foreign dollars coming into the US. So we consider those exports too. So we work with universities to help them identify students, to help recruit them to come and internationalize their campuses. So it's also a very big part of what we do.
At the Ministry of Economic Affairs Foreign Trade Bureau, our education continued. Eugene Chen and his colleagues explained the importance of Taiwan's trade and investment connections with China, but also emphasized the simultaneous desire to diversify relationships and not become overly dependent on commercial links to the mainland. Our pre-trip research indicated a widely shared appreciation for plunging into hot water. So Peter took us to an historic hot springs facility in the heart of Taipei. Now a museum, this place was established in 1913 during a period of Japanese administration. Our host explained some artistic symbols on display as well as other features of the place, which is part of an historic network of hot springs in the area. People in Taiwan treasure the health and beauty effects of bathing in the Earth's natural well springs of well-being, and even derive benefits from radioactive rock, just as some of us do in Montana.
We know the hot spring is good for health, both for the physical, the bone or the skin, and the other is for beauty. And also, you know, in the cold weather, if you dip in the hot spring, it's quite comfortable.
Right next door is the Beitou Branch Library, a showcase of innovative design elements. From a certain angle, the building resembles a cruise ship entering a green harbor. That's on purpose. The rooftop array of solar panels, a section of grass roof insulation, and the connecting rainwater collection system takes the shape of an open book. There are no straight lines in the upper-level exterior of this building. The internal spaces are conducive to study, reflection, learning, and in the children's section, a bit of play as well.
This library lies in a park. The park was built more than 100 years ago. Okay. That's one of the reasons that the architects chose a lot of wood timber for the construction material. They hope that this building could blend into its natural environment. The 3 steel posts are used to elevate and support the roof. This way we get a high ceiling here. The higher ceiling helps get more natural light and better indoor ventilation. The architects designed seats on the stairs. When you sit there reading, it looks like you are sitting under a big tree. This is special. No other one is similar.
Our next stop on this cultural outing was a delightful surprise. We learned that an art form rooted in China's ancient past is now flourishing in Taiwan, where the talented craftsmen of the Taiwan Theater and Museum are on the forefront of puppetry worldwide.
I'm director of the museum. I'm artistic director of our company, so we also have a theater company. Taiwanese puppet theater culture originally came from China 300 years ago, but it had a very unique development, especially in the 20th century, that it became really an icon of Taiwanese culture. So in 2006, it was selected through an internet poll that it was the symbol of Taiwanese culture. So there's a puppet theater channel 24 hours a day. The biggest puppet film studio in the world is in the south of Taiwan, and there's still about 300-400 companies active. So in every convenience store in Taiwan, you can buy puppet DVDs, which is really very unique. So it's very much alive. It's a unique situation anywhere in Asia, also compared to mainland China. China used to be a literate society like Europe in the past. So the theater was like the Wikipedia of the culture. So how did people get their information? They saw theater, they learned about love, death, the emperor they would never see, but they saw him on stage. So you learn about your own culture by watching theater, and puppet theater is very small, so you can go to the furthest mountains, the far, far away, and still bring that culture on a beautiful stage with beautiful movements. So it was very important. And it's music theater. There's always more musicians than performers, and it's always performed in temples and at religious celebrations. So it's an inherent part of this whole Chinese cultural experience. So there is the television puppets, which are the most popular, and they come out from the tradition, but they're completely modern with modern music, post-production, laser shows, and the company's so popular they're now noted on the stock exchange in Taiwan, so you can buy puppet stocks. They're the only puppeteers in the world who drive a Ferrari, so it's really very popular.
With this time-honored artistic bridge connecting Taiwan to the mainland in mind, let's circle back one more time to hotel manager Jürgen Klemm.
Nobody knows about it. Oh, Taiwan? Oh, is that Thailand? No, it's Taiwan. Oh, different. Well, it used to be called Formosa. Okay, whatever. So people don't really know. The Chinese say this is part of China, which, well, not really is. If you look at it politically, it's not. They got their own currency, they got their own military, their own country, their own everything. Just China says they're part of it traditionally, so and there's a long story, long-going story. If you look at the country as a whole, of course they have a very strong independent mentality, I would say, different from the Chinese mentality on the mainland, for the simple reason that in the last 50, 60 years, education here was different from the communist education on the other side. Now, I'm not talking about communism, there's nothing to do with that anymore anyway. But it's the ways of education in this place and that place were not the same. So if you meet people from China and meet from Taiwan, you will distinctly find out that they don't behave in the same ways. They don't have the same patterns of behavior or communication. They do things differently. So I think the Taiwanese do have their own culture in the meantime over the years. So the Taiwanese are somewhere between the Western world and between the Chinese world. It's like an in-between. Mentality-wise, we would call it the Taiwanese are 50% Chinese, very traditional, 25% Japanese, because this was part of Japan for 50 years, from 1895 to 1945. And then a very strong relationship with especially the United States, America. So it's 25% Western American, which makes them much more open than others in Asia, much more easy to communicate with. It gives you less of a culture shock dealing with the Taiwanese because, oh, they're somewhere closer. Even they look Chinese, they behave Chinese, but the mentality is a bit closer, in fact. It's more easy for us to handle. The strategy for China needs to be to have access to the open Pacific, because that's 10,000 kilometers of water, nothing else in between. So for them, the only way to protect themselves and get out of this encirclement means to be going out there. So the only place possibly where they could get out, in fact, is Taiwan. Now, Taiwan highest mountains is 4,000 meters. We have 250 peaks of over 3,000 meters. That's 10,000 feet, right? That's really quite high. Yeah. This is a very rugged terrain. So if you can control that rock, you have a real fortress in front of your country, a real big thing. You can't give it away.
What really floored us after all this is the fact that Jürgen has never touched foot in China. We took the only direct flight from Taipei to Nanning, capital of Guangxi Province. It's time to introduce Ku Tao, our marvelous greeter, guide, interpreter, and interlocutor for the duration of our stay in Guangxi. This young gentleman is quite a character. And here's Ku Tao's colleague, Joy. We never had trouble finding her in a crowd. Some 2,000 years ago, during the Han Dynasty, Beihai was the foremost point of departure for China's maritime Silk Road. 100 years ago, Beihai served as a major trade portal for economic exchange with Western countries. In the 1970s, Deng Xiaoping's open culture policy rejuvenated Beihai as an active commercial center and a tourist destination. Today, Beihai continues these roles. It has also become a major getaway place for Chinese citizens. Because of its comparatively superior air quality, Beihai is known as the biggest city oxygen bar for the country. The area's saltwater mangrove wetlands are unique in the world and serve social as well as environmental and ecotourism functions. Our hosts in Beihai treated us to lunch, and we were able to return the favor with modest gifts, including this priceless souvenir from our own Lewis and Clark County. It was a good fit. We visited a deepwater port facility where the port manager told us about his 30 years of dedicated work at this site, rising from the lower ranks and achieving his senior position. He explained that the ships at dockside were loading kaolin, a type of clay used for the porcelain industry, and chemical fertilizers bound for farms in Australia. Beihai is already a major transit facility for goods and commodities and is well positioned to be on the leading edge of China's One Belt, One Road initiative, a large-scale restoration of the country's famed maritime and terrestrial connections to Southeast Asia, India, and many places farther west.
And a lot of factors can determine whether this place can be granted 4A or 5A. And with 5A being the highest, like the history, culture, customs, people, environmental protection, and the number of tourists, all these factors, when combined, will be determine whether this place can be granted 4A or 5A. As can be seen from this is granted by the China National Tourist Attractions Quality Evaluation Committee. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beihai Old Town. My name is Megan. I'm very honored to be a tour guide today.
Megan identified herself as a young woman of the sea. Her struggles with English made her all the more delightful.
Old Town. Okay. Can you understand me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing good.
So let's take a tour with our sweet Beihai hosts and smiling Megan.
It's very famous land in the old street. We say it Gentleman Land.
Say it again.
Gentleman Land.
Gentleman land?
Gentleman.
Oh, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gentlemen will face at first they will face the work and let the lady first go through the land. So we call it Gentleman Land.
We boarded an open-air taxi and made our way back to the beginning of the street. This is Silver Beach, Beihai's recreation mecca. Most of those fishing boats anchored offshore are from Vietnam. The view is toward the South China Sea, an area that has become the locus of conflicting territorial claims and a military buildup on the part of China. Everything looks peaceful, calm, and celebratory from the balcony of our hotel. We have to hope that the fireworks are not a visual prelude to conflicts over shipping lanes, rocky islets, marine resources, and the political status of Taiwan. We didn't expect to find much in the way of current or prospective commercial relationships in Guangxi, but unanticipated displays of cutting-edge processes and technologies kept coming at us. At one of the several large industrial parks in the Beihai area, the 3-nod incubator pod offered multidimensional examples of ultra-modern innovation.
The 3 nodes refer to high quality, high service, and high value.
As TV people, we were drawn to the audio-video display unit.
Aha! I know you want me, you know I want you. All that I need are the boots.
Kutao next took us to a computer factory, where scores of young Chinese put Lenovo brand laptops together day in and day out. For all we knew, the Lenovo ThinkPads used by hundreds of state employees in and around the Capitol complex at home could have been assembled and shipped from this facility. The tour allowed us to witness firsthand how many thousands of young Chinese workers are incorporated into global supply chains. The bigger surprise came at the end, when we learned that the factory manager hails from Taiwan. James told us that there are 10,000 workers on the line in 8 shifts, producing 10,000 units every day. It takes 25 minutes to put a laptop together, and only half a day to go from scratch to finished product, boxed and ready to ship. With future trade and investment opportunities popping into view at every turn, we next turned our attention to tourism, a major service sector export for Guangxi and Montana alike. We took the train from Beihai to Guilin, the launch pad for flotillas of sightseers from many parts of the world. There was much to see en route, including iconic landscapes, bucolic farmlands, and as always, Chinese people on the move. In the Guilin area, Mr. Zhang from the city's Foreign Affairs Office was our local host and guide. Guilin relies on tourism. It is unique in this part of China for allowing foreigners a 72-hour visit without having to obtain a visa. The incentive works. We bumped into quite a few European and other non-Chinese travelers on our boat. The verdant and crenulated landscape along the Lijiang River is the result of karst limestone formations, and this scenery is famous throughout China and around the world for having inspired lyrical poetic expression across many centuries. A promotional brochure portrays this stretch of the river as 100 miles of art gallery. We disembarked from our long leisurely cruise from Guilin at Yangshou, the end of the line. There is no dearth of shopping opportunities on West Street and its tributaries in Yangshou. The place was alive with hustle and bustle. Our van took us to a large village in the hills called Longsheng, where local people have been harvesting rice from steep terraces for over 500 years. This hand-carved landscape is a visual testament to the people's hardiness, resilience, and an ongoing commitment to economic self-reliance. The terraced hillsides draw lots of visitors from near and far, including girls who clearly just want to have fun. On our descent from the high terraces to the small, tourist-oriented village of Penang, we encountered a young lady roasting freshly harvested tea leaves. She invited us in and promptly served a succession of tiny cups of the finest tea I have ever tasted in my life. Back in Longsheng, we chased that tea with bamboo rice on the barbie.
天下 under the heaven. Okay. That means this village, people in this village have the longest hair in the world.
Kutao set us up for a cultural dessert, a group of Yao women performing traditional dances that celebrate, among other things, extraordinary hair. And clean laundry. Chinese people are always on the move. In Guangxi and Taiwan alike, they get around every which way. On high-speed trains, big buses, small boats, lots of cars, bicycles, motorbikes, and on what seems like a zillion motor scooters. People walk a lot and stretch themselves. In a cavernous space below a bridge in Guilin, we saw people stepping up their pace to dance music. The return trip to Nanning from Guilin was smooth and relaxing. Some of our fellow travelers were extremely relaxed. In Nanning, we disembarked at the largest and most modern multimodal transit center any of us had ever seen anywhere. This three-tiered complex integrates nearly 100 trains, scores of buses, and fleets of taxis. Barely 2 years old, the station includes such amenities as automated ticket booths, baby feeding rooms, a center for aged and disabled travelers, and robust information services. We were told that young people love the openness and modernity of the facility, while older folks are somewhat intimidated. In Taiwan and in Guangxi too, even though we visited museums and shrines devoted to the glories of China's distant past, we were compelled by our surroundings to realize repeatedly that we were actually encountering the future. In Guangxi's capital city Nanning especially, the notion that we had entered a future world was manifest in many ways. The vast railway station was just for starters. The massive exposition hall was yet another example of the scale of things in modern China. Nanning is just one of 160 cities in China with over 1 million residents. Shen Fei, whom we know as Sophie, was our first human connection with Guangxi. Sophie and her associate Crystal spent time in Helena back in 2009. In 2016, 7 years after their invitation to visit Guangxi, our dream came true. We finally made it. Sophie and her colleague Kate hosted us for a lovely dinner in a Nanning restaurant. Afterwards, an evening stroll through a shopping arcade led to an unexpected rendezvous with some local Chinese folks enjoying a rich slice of American musical culture. At the ASEAN Expo exhibition hall in central Nanning, we happened on an afternoon rehearsal for an upcoming trade show extravaganza. In retrospect, this chance encounter with a practice session fits neatly into a pattern of experience that we had in Guangxi. This southernmost province in the most populous country on earth is rehearsing its role in the global future. The pace and stability of continuing development in China is up for debate, but one thing is certain: the future will feature many, many Chinese people, highly motivated to move forward on many fronts. Guangxi University is not a large institution by Chinese measures, but it has 30 colleges, some 30,000 full-time undergrad and graduate students, over 50,000 part-time continuing education students, and over 3,500 faculty and staff. This is Ku Tao's alma mater, and he arranged a meeting with several administrators who are interested in prospective exchanges with the university in Montana. After the meeting, we had a chance to speak informally with several of Ku Tao's student friends.
My name is Zhou Jingyi. I'm a student of Guangxi University majoring in English.
And my name is Tai Wei Hao. My English name is Leo. My major is teaching Chinese as a foreign language.
I would love to be a part of in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yes, that's my dream. Because my major in the postgraduate study is British Studies, so I hope that I can do whatever I can to help our country to build a closer relationship with Britain or other countries.
One of my dreams is also to go to America for my maybe doctorate degrees, because I think it will be a very great experience for me.
The fate of the world may hinge on avoidance of major war between China and the United States. Taiwan is the foremost flashpoint that could ignite such a conflagration.
We're the largest country in the world. Not too many years from now, China's economy will exceed that of ours. We have very different cultures. We're a very proud country. China is a very proud country. And it matters to me is the degree to which we build this relationship, U.S.-China. It's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to happen automatically. It's going to, like all relationships, it takes work. We Americans, especially as we're concerned about our kids and grandkids, want to make sure that the relationship between U.S. and China is very solid and very good. That is, the two cultures mesh, the gears mesh, rather than have the gears grind. The more we Americans, we Montanans, know about China, visit China, go around the country so the Chinese people see us and they understand us, because we're pretty good people, we Montanans, and vice versa. The more the Chinese come over and see us in in Montana, the better in all capacities, in all ways. I do believe that if the relationship's going to work, the more we interact at every possible level, Americans and Chinese, here from the presidents on down to the just ordinary folks and tourists, and just seeing what's happening in the governments and local governments, the sister state relationships, the companies, American companies in China and Chinese American, just all the different ways we can interact. Then I think things are going to work out better, because then we tend to understand each other better. We tend to know each other a little better. I very much appreciate and like the energy and the spirit of Chinese people. It's contagious. Chinese are more optimistic about their future than Americans are about our future. They just believe in the future. They're just, that energy is there.
The One China policy is a basic feature of geopolitical stability in Asia. At the same time, it exemplifies potential instability.
I've been to Taiwan a couple of times. Taiwanese are just wonderful, wonderful people. And I think it makes sense for Montana, whether it's the legislature, it makes sense, frankly, for the United States Congress, if it wants to pass resolutions in support of Taiwan. Now, China doesn't like that. China, over and over again, purports to adhere to its One China policy, which is basically, the argument is that Taiwan is part of China. It's so different. Its living standards are so much higher than China. And more important, it's a democracy. People vote in Taiwan. The government changes in Taiwan, not in China. And so I think it's very good to maintain that support in Taiwan. If China and the United States get along pretty well, a lot of the rest of the world is going to get along pretty well too. But if we don't, if things are going to go haywire, and they could, then that's going to be disruptive and have adverse consequences.
Early one morning, we witnessed the daily scurry of getting to school in downtown Taipei. It's hard to imagine anything more endearing and more familiar than watching young children being dropped off at school. These Taiwanese kids are the future, just like our own kids, and just like these children we saw waiting impatiently on the platform of a Guangxi railway station. It was a privilege to witness what our different Asian sisters share in common, an abiding and deep respect for cultural traditions, an abundance of entrepreneurial drive, great hospitality, and generosity of spirit, healthy appetites for cultural and educational exchange, and, not least, a genuine appreciation for Montana.
Pineapple is a local fruit, but the cake is from your state. You see?
East and West, Guangxi and Montana are the best.
We hope that as citizens of sister states, we will have ongoing opportunities to share stories, adventures, and lifelong values with each other. We are in this together, come rain, come shine.
Glacier National Park is what I think of when I think of Montana. And it's been a long time since I've been there, and I wish I could go back soon.
First impression, I thought of Hannah, Montana first. And then I know that's a beautiful place, breathtakingly beautiful, with beautiful lake and mountains. And I know the Yellowstone National Park. Yes, it's really beautiful. And we all want to go to there in the future.
Yeah, it will be a great choice for our holiday travel.
Yeah.
Yellowstone would be the very first word coming to me when we are talking about Montana. Well, and I know some other national parks like Glacier National Park,
It's very beautiful. And I know Montana is very rich in natural resources, lumber, mineral resources, and waters. It's very, very beautiful and gorgeous.
And also, you know, it's a bit different. When I was a student, I had little knowledge about Montana. And after I work, I get to know more about Montana because of our sister provincial and state relationship.
Montana, I know a big sky country, yeah?